So around the middle of NaNoWriMo, I mentioned that I wanted to, at the end of the month, make a sit-down video talking about the things that I learned throughout NaNoWriMo, and this is that video. When I mentioned that in my vlog, there was one specific thing that really stood out that I wanted to talk about, and that I think is still my biggest takeaway from NaNoWriMo 2019, but there are definitely a lot of smaller things that I feel like I learned along the way, so let's go ahead and talk about those. So I feel like I need to start this video by talking about how the last week-ish of NaNoWriMo went for me because I didn't vlog it, and the answer is not good, Jim. Now I say that, but I did end up winning NaNoWriMo. I won on day 24, but about the time that I hit 50K and also the time that I started traveling, my productivity just went way down. I only got like maybe 500 words a day, if that. So the last week or so were not super productive, even though I did end up winning. And my productivity during that time is gonna be addressed later in the video. I ended NaNoWriMo somewhere around like 54,000 words, so overall it was a successful NaNoWriMo. I just am not super satisfied with that last week of it. Ever since I've gotten back from Thanksgiving, I've been really busy because I'm moving, and I've kind of been in the thick of the move and trying to get a lot of work done before I move, so I haven't really been devoting any time to writing because those two things are taking up most of my time. So right now I'm near the end of Act 2. I have one chapter that I need to finish, and then from there I need to write another chapter or part of another chapter, and then I have some words that I wrote earlier this year that I can plug in for the last chapter of the act. So my main goal for this next week, or at least while I'm in the middle of this move, is to finish Act 2, to come up with some sort of game plan timeline for when I'm going to finish the rest of the draft, and to outline Act 3, to complete that outline for Act 3, which I think I'm pretty close to doing. I think my overall goal is to finish the draft by the end of the year, but I'm trying to take it in little steps because writing is honestly not my priority at the moment. Alright, enough with this preamble, time to jump into what I learned in NaNoWriMo 2019. Number 1. Oh hey, some semblance of a routine is actually a good thing. I'm not someone who likes structure. I've said over and over again on my channel that I cannot physically do the same thing in the same order every single day. It drives me nuts. However, NaNoWriMo really reminded me that at least a little structure is actually pretty helpful. For me during NaNoWriMo, that was having the daily word count goal to hit and also doing yoga pretty much every day, at least while I was at home. Just having those two things that I told myself I was going to do every day kind of helped me to formulate a task list around those two things and make sure I got everything done in the day. And it also just kind of helped me to feel more productive every day because I got those two things done every single day. Now, my second point is the downside to this thing, which is that I am horrifyingly unproductive when I'm traveling or around family because I find it so hard to keep up that type of routine that I set in place. This is kind of something I already knew because of how many holidays I've had to deal with this, but this NaNoWriMo really solidified that like writing specifically is a problem for me when I'm traveling or around family. When I'm visiting family for the holidays, I'm basically around them 24/7 even if we're not doing anything, and being around people all day long is just not good for me to get anything done ever. I can't deal with the thought of someone reading it over my shoulder, or like even if I changed the font color, I was still worried that might happen, and I can't deal with the distraction of my family watching TV around me. It just doesn't work well. And then I'm a night owl, so you'd think that I could get stuff done after everyone goes to sleep, but being around family all day is pretty mentally draining for me as like a mega introvert. So at the end of the day, all I wanted to do was just like sit and watch all the YouTube videos that I couldn't watch during the day, or to like just sleep because I was exhausted. Basically, I found that even if I had my document open all day long and was like trying to write on it, I only got like maybe 500 to 1,000 words all day long because I just couldn't focus and I was too distracted by everything around me, and just it doesn't work well. Piggybacking off of that a little bit, the third thing that this NaNoWriMo taught me is that if I hit 50K before the end of the month, I immediately get unproductive. I've won NaNoWriMo twice at this point, 2016 and then this year, and both times when I hit 50K, my productivity immediately went way down. Now, like I mentioned in the last point, that's partially because I was traveling and around family, but I don't think it's entirely due to that. Logically, I knew I still had words to write, but my brain was like, we hit the milestone, we're all good now, we don't need to write anymore, and that happened both times. And like I mentioned, it also doesn't help that the end of NaNoWriMo lines up with Thanksgiving, which is just the most inconvenient convenient thing ever. I really wish NaNoWriMo was at a different time because it's a bad time for students. When I was a student, it was awful timing because that's when all the finals are, and it's awful timing with the holiday. I mean, it's just bad timing for me every single year. But I digress. No matter what, I don't think I will ever hit 50K in NaNoWriMo and be done with my draft and be able to stop. And yet I find that every time I hit 50K, my productivity goes way down. So maybe I need to try to write shorter drafts for NaNoWriMo and then expand on them later. I don't know. Or maybe I could just be an adult about it and still do the work that I need to do. The fourth thing that this NaNoWriMo taught me is that I'm not a huge fan of writing sprints. I found that like live write-ins or live sprinting sessions, even if I didn't watch them live, were actually a lot better than just normal writing sprints. But yeah, writing sprints, not really my thing. And this is for kind of two different reasons. The first one is that if I'm given a goal, like 1K in 30 minutes, I'm gonna try as hard as I can to hit that goal, no matter what, even if it means rambling and putting in a ton of extra words that I know I'm gonna get rid of. I mean, we all know that during NaNoWriMo, our words aren't gonna be like the best words we've ever written, but I also don't set out to like write a bunch of words I know I'm never gonna use just hit some sort of goal. And when I was doing those sorts of writing sprints, my competitive nature just took over and I wanted to like get to the goal. So I found that whenever I sat down to do a writing sprint with like a specific word count goal in mind, I hated it because I just rambled and put in useless stuff. And secondly, I just don't like the added pressure that it puts on me to write words quickly. There were a few days in there where it was 10 p.m., I hadn't written, and I was like, I'll do some writing sprints to get my words in for the day, no problem. And I hated it. I think this is less the sprints themselves than it is just the mentality. You have 2 hours left, write. But that's also kind of the mentality I go into a word sprint with, if that makes sense. When I'm given some sort of time limit, I feel like I can't go back and fix things that I would normally fix when just writing. I just need to keep putting words in to try to get as many words as possible. And I don't really like that added pressure on my writing. Really, I feel like I wrote better without sprints. I think that I tended to write faster and better when I didn't have that added pressure on me. So I think that in the future, I'm gonna try not to do writing sprints unless I just am like really in the mood for it. Number 5, immersion. For me, immersion is key when drafting. Once again, this is something that I had a vague sense of before this NaNoWriMo, but this really just solidified it. About a week into NaNoWriMo, I mentioned this in my vlog, I got in the mood to watch Survivor. And when I got in the mood to watch Survivor, that's all I wanted to do. I just wanted to binge watch Survivor rather than drafting. I've found that when I'm drafting, my main focus, my main excitement needs to be that story, that draft, or else I get super unmotivated to write and the draft probably goes unfinished. Like right now, my main focus is on moving and on getting my work done, and I just haven't finished my draft because that hasn't been the mindset that I've been in because I have other priorities. And yeah, I probably could have put in like a half an hour here or there to finish the draft in the past few days, but because the draft hasn't been my primary motivation and focus, I haven't. And I think that that's something that I need to remember next time I draft, because if I lose focus at any point, it could go off the rails at any time. Or I could be an adult and just do it no matter what, but that's a lot harder. And finally, point number 6, the last point, the one that made me want to make this video mid-month, the biggest takeaway from NaNoWriMo 2019 for me is that you never truly understand the problems within your story until you just write the draft. As someone who really relies on outlining, I often feel like I can't start a draft until I've got my outline perfectly laid out, until I am happy with every single thing that happens in the story. And I think that this NaNoWriMo taught me that that might not be the best way to do it for me. As I was drafting, and as I mentioned several times in vlogs, there were so many moments where I was writing and just realized that what I had outlined simply wasn't going to work, and I couldn't realize that until I actually wrote it. Some chapters I wrote were way too short and had to be combined with other chapters, and some chapters were way too long and had to be split up if I wanted to keep the story that I was trying to tell. And then there were some sections where I wrote a scene and I just immediately knew it didn't work because either it was too similar to something that had already happened, or it just didn't fit the tone of the story, or it was still too melodramatic from previous versions of the story. And then the biggest one that I mentioned so many times in the vlogs is that while drafting, I realized that 100% for sure this story needs to be dual narrated. It was something that I'd thought about and toyed with a little bit, but I didn't realize until actually trying to draft it that this needs to be dual narrated. Like, it has to be. It was something that I was so unsure about before drafting, and it just became more and more solid of a realization the more and more I drafted. It just needed to happen. So I think that this realization that you never know the problems until you actually write it is actually going to help me get more drafting done. Because now I am acutely aware that no matter how much time I spend perfecting my outline, I'm probably still going to come across problems in it when I write that I couldn't have figured out until I actually wrote it. So those are my 6 big takeaways from NaNoWriMo. I am just really happy overall with the NaNoWriMo, even if the last week wasn't super great, because I really went into NaNoWriMo not expecting to win. And honestly, maybe that's like a bonus number 7 thing I learned, because I really went into NaNoWriMo with 0 expectations. I did not think I was gonna win. I wasn't super motivated to write, and yet I did. So I guess I would call that like never underestimate the power of NaNoWriMo, because really I just had 0 expectations, and I'm very content that I have almost a full draft. We're getting there. I wish I could say that I plan to vlog the completion of the draft, but honestly I don't think I can or will because of everything else going on. But I do hope to eventually make a writing vlog summing up what happened finishing the draft when I do inevitably finish the draft, because I will. It's gonna happen. But that is all for this video. Let me know down in the comments if you participated in NaNoWriMo 2019 and what you learned from it and how you did. Would love to know. As always, links to all my social media are down in the description. Like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.